It's interesting because from the moment I picked up a pen to write lyrics, it was all about justice and what was happening. Growing up in Australia, I grew up with an extended family of Indigenous Australians, and was really aware and cognizant of the injustices that they faced, even at that time, and even today still. So, and racism and things like that. So that was something that was it's just naturally been in me from a very young age. Also, my mother worked with Indigenous peoples. We were poor in that monetary sense, but we always had an abundance of family and good vibes. Yeah, man, it's bad. I mean, everywhere around the world it's reflected, and it's a sort of a similar situation everywhere where there has been colonization of sovereign peoples, and inequality is massive, and it's systemic, and it's part of the foundation of a system that is fundamentally wrong and not built towards empowering or inspiring not only our Indigenous population but humankind at large. So, and of course on the margins you find the people that were obviously for so long abused. We have a massive healing to do in Australia in terms of the children were stolen from their families when they were young babies and put into schools and missions where they weren't allowed to speak language, and so we have a stolen generation. The same thing happened here in America, the same thing happened in Canada and in other places. So these are things that have not just one generation effect. I know people who were stolen. I know people from the stolen generation. That's like, we call them uncle and auntie, but it wasn't that long ago. It was like 50 years ago. That's nothing. So, that sort of healing that needs to take place could happen really quickly, but not in the current world mindset. So what we do is, other than just being compassionate people, is we use our art and whatever creativity, our gifts that we've been given for the greater good. And to me, that's what life is really about. The
understanding of the system, because we don't clearly understand the system that they live in.
Mm-hmm.
So did this insight come from just your exposure in Australia? Did it come from reading? Did it come from reasoning? Where did you get this clear understanding to see the system for what it is?
Well, it's the sum of the parts, I think that myself personally, and other people, so many of us are going through our own evolution, We're evolving consciousness. And so as we grow, there are things that are completely obvious to me now that were not on my radar like 5 years ago, And so the more you learn, the more you grow, the more you learn, you're yet to learn. So that, that chasing and that thirst for knowledge and truth and just something other than what we've been programmed or what we've been told, is that sort of information is coming out, like, I find really strongly and heavily across the planet, because people are really tuning into some different sort of ideas on what life can be, what existence on the planet could be, ourselves in terms of being multidimensional beings, spirituality, where humans come from, like everything. You can, as soon as you go in that rabbit hole, you just whoosh, you can go, and really that's what, you turn around and you think, fuck, they say, they've told us forever the sky is the limit, you know what I mean? But the sky's not the limit. It's just the beginning. It's just the beginning. It's just the gateway, you know what I mean? So when you start the more you read, myself, yes, I read a lot, and I read diverse texts and whatever like sparks my interest or intuition.
Thank you so much for watching I Never Knew TV.
Please subscribe, comment, like, share.